This is the Shoemaker Films Podcast.
Welcome to Shoemaker Films Podcast. This is Dane Shoemaker. I'm here with Ronica Cleary of Cleary Strategies. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So tell me, Ronica, what is PR? In your own words. We'll just start right off with that.
I love that question because I was really thinking about it before this podcast. I have a definition of what it is today, public relations. We help our clients earn media attention. But I think what's really important to think about public relations. So it's helping our clients and their relationship with the public. Mm-hmm. And before social media, the only way you could really communicate with the public was through this very powerful system of the media, unless you paid for it, which is advertising. So Public relations has really changed a lot in the last decade or two because now you have more control over the way you communicate with the public because you can create your own social media accounts. But a tried and true public relations strategy and mission is how do we communicate with the public, with an audience that we don't want to pay for an advertisement? How do we earn that coverage? And that's what publicists help their clients do.
Yeah, absolutely. So CEO and founder of Cleary Strategies.
Yes.
Have you always been in PR? Tell me a little bit about your career and how you...
I have not always been in PR. Okay. In fact, I never in my wildest dreams, if I was, graduating from college, if you say one day you're going to run a PR agency, I would have said, I don't even know what that is. So Definitely was not in the plans. But prior to launching Cleary Strategies, I was a television journalist. Okay. So I was most recently a White House correspondent in Washington, D.C. And, I covered a lot of different areas and aspects of politics. So I covered New Jersey politics before I went down to Washington. I covered Chris Christie. I covered him when he was the RGA chair. I covered him when he ran for president. And then I was very fortunate. I was asked to move down to Washington, D.C. and be a politics reporter in Washington. And then when President Trump won the first time, it just changed the way the world talked about politics. And even though I was a local news reporter, it's very unusual for local news reporters to cover the White House. I was given the opportunity to, so I became a White House correspondent, even though I was at the local station. And I had that experience, and I covered Sean Spicer and Sarah Huckabee Sanders in the briefing rooms. And at that point, I was pregnant with my second child. There was like a lot of reasons that it didn't make sense for me to continue. And I had this amazing experience. I kind of did it,
Yeah, right.
And so I said, it's time to try something else. And so I opened Cleary Strategies really with the intention to be a communications firm, a little more broad and general. But what happened is I listened to my customers and my clients, my potential clients. And what I suddenly realized is what they really wanted was publicity and a publicist. And so Cleary Strategies really morphed over time to become what it is today, which is very much a full-service public relations agency.
Amazing. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when you say you founded it as a communications firm, you were intended to work with certain clients,
right? For people, help them, maybe a little booking, a little TV, but very much now. What we do today is pretty much strictly through the lens of how our clients intersect with all aspects of media. Where I think when you think of communications, it can have a much broader reach. It can have a much more like dynamic set of roles and like expectations and deliverables. But really when you come to our agency, you say, I want press attention, whether it's through podcasts or television or print or digital, and I don't know how to get that. Yeah. I don't know how to reach out to reporters. I don't know what reporters are interested or need. And I realized that while I can still help people with those other aspects of communicating, we had a specific like niche and specialty, and my experience as a television journalist was unique. Right. So I said, let me specialize in something that makes me different. And now my team makes my team different because we have a team of people that work for us. Almost all of them come from TV or journalism. Like that's what we kind of use to make ourselves different and give us a differentiating factor in this very crowded market of like communications professionals.
Right.
And so that's how we got to here.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you're a national agency, right?
We support our clients all over the country.
Yeah.
And we are based in the Philadelphia region, but media is limitless,
Yeah.
right? And especially even today with local stations, so many local stations going into streaming. Almost every local news station now has streaming options to watch their programming, obviously national programming, digital, all papers have digital components. So I think it's too limiting to say, oh, I'm going to work with a client that's only based in one region. Of course, maybe they're based in one region, but I look at the media landscape as expansive and never ending. And so the last thing I want to think about is, oh, we're going to only pitch here. We pitch all over the country every day. Of course, we might have to adjust the pitching or adjust the strategy or make sure that it works for the client to be pitched in other markets. But we do support a client roster based from, California to Florida to New York and back.
Yeah, amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a typical clientele, industry,
So we say we're industry agnostic.
Yeah.
But we are looking for people or brands or products where they are hoping to promote the founder or an expert or a thought leader on behalf of that mid-sized business, corporation, an author, a New York Times bestselling author. The idea is there is a face associated with your brand or product or business that we can help promote. That's really our specialty. I sometimes can dumb it down to the idea of, we all know like talking heads on TV. If you want to be a talking head, or if you want someone from your organization to do that, we can help you figure out who should that person be. We can prepare them to be that person. We can help you figure out what would be their expertise that would make sense. And really, there's no reason to limit ourselves to one industry, because you turn on the TV, you listen to a podcast, they're across all types of industries, right?
Yeah.
So it makes our job more interesting. It allows us to serve more clients. But really, that specialty isn't a fit for every business. Not every business wants a spokesperson or has the right fitting person. So we can't serve everybody.
Yeah.
But it allows us to have a lot more fun in the work that we do, because we can work across so many industries and, topics.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think you do need to have a specific clientele there. You have almost that founder personality that you're trying to build that reputation, get their name, face and name out there.
Yeah.
I actually think you're going to see that more and more in marketing today. Especially on social media, you see these brands putting out. We do a lot of social media content, right? So brands are starting to now look at spokespeople and building up personal brands and founder personalities rather than investing in just kind of faceless marketing. Right. So I feel like there's a big opportunity there. Obviously PR is big now, but I think it's only going to get more important, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think that the consumer behavior and attitudes have changed. People want to know who they're buying from. They want to know who they are working with. They also really demand that companies give back in certain ways. That previously companies would toe the line and stay down the straight and narrow. Now they're expected not to. But with that comes a lot of risk. A good public relations professional can also provide guidance on that risk. What is the potential backfire from getting into the fray while your customers demand it?
Yeah.
And so it's a complicated world to navigate, and it's not always what businesses were expected to do. And so now with those changing expectations, I think sometimes businesses are like, okay, well, now we need to not be faceless. Yeah. We also need to get into the middle of conversations. We need to give back in some way. We need to participate in our communities. And we want coverage for it. And we don't want it to backfire. And if it does backfire, we don't exactly know how to talk to journalists if it does, right? And so all of those things fall under the umbrella of what our public relations agency does. I mean, some people will call things PR that aren't that, but for us, that's kind of the umbrella that we operate under.
Yeah, right. So when you work with a client, what does that kind of like initial engagement look like, the onboarding? Do you have a kind of a process that you go through?
We do. Some clients, it's really obvious. And some clients come to us who've worked with public relations professionals like on and off throughout their lives, and they're sort of established. They know what their message is. They know what they can talk about. They say, these are my topics. I wrote these 3 books, and go. We just start pitching. But for a lot of clients, this might be their first time diving into the space.
Yeah.
And we like to take a day of 30 days of discovery. And in that 30 days, we're going to interview you. We're going to read the things that you've written. We're going to make sure we understand the areas of expertise that you are aware of, and maybe the areas of expertise that you might not identify with that we think you could contribute to. Okay. So we're going to use that time to understand who you are, what you can talk about, train you, and think about the media landscape and where you might fit into it based on what we uncover during that time. Okay. So I think it's really important to take that time. Public relations is a tough industry because there are a lot of PR agencies out there that do not deliver consistent and meaningful results. And so it is hard to know, am I getting sucked into an agency that doesn't know what they're doing and is wasting time? Or is this agency really taking the time to develop a foundation about me as a client so that they can do a better job? Yeah. Right? And you can, you never really know who you're hiring, but I always say to people, a good PR agency can't give you guarantees. We cannot. Everything that we do every day is dependent on third-party decision makers, which are the media, right? Yeah. I don't control anything because I'm not in advertising. I can't say, well, just give me this much money and I'm going to buy you the placement. Yeah. So you have to depend on the years of experience that they have, the years of experience that their team has, and look at their results and case studies from other clients. If those are consistent and regular and have lots that you can point to, then that 30 days of discovery, you should trust that it's valuable and it's necessary and that it's going to help them do a better job to position you during the remaining portion of the contract. We like to work with people for at least 6 months, so we've got that 30 days to dive in and understand them, and then at least 5 months of leeway to play with and pitch and see where we go and we land and what works, and then hopefully continue. But that's kind of the base package that really allows us to do great work. And if our clients want to roll off after 6 months, they're going to have a nice body of work and placements that they can use and promote. And if they want to continue, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Do you have clients that, there's short-term and long-term engagements, right? I'm sure.
Yeah, we have clients that stay with us for years. And we have clients that maybe they're an author and they say, I would like to become a paid speaker. And so what they will do with us sometimes, it's very hard to get into the paid speaking circuit. We're not a speakers bureau or speakers agency, but of course we work with them and we're very familiar with them because a lot of authors need public relations to promote their book and themselves. And so they'll say, we would like to work with you for 6 months. And then at the end, we will work with our video editor and make them a sizzle reel that they can then use to send off to potential speaking gigs. Because it's like, how do you get your first speaking gig? They all want you to have speaking experience. But how do you get your speaking experience if you haven't got your first speaking gig? Right. Well, TV is a nice way to get some video content to show that you know what you're doing, to show that you're articulate, that you can hold your own, that you've commanded and earned press and media attention. And you can send that to those potential speaking gigs. Then you get some speaking gigs, you incorporate them into the sizzle reel, and now you're like cooking with gas, right? Yeah, right. Now you can really establish yourself. Maybe you come back to us when your next book is out. So some people, the strategy from the get-go is we're gonna work together for 6 months. Some people, they want to invest in public relations for the long game. That's our preference, of course, is to work with people for the long game, but we recognize and understand that for some clients, it really makes sense to do a 6-month engagement, and that makes sense. And we try to go into it with open eyes, so we know what we're doing, and we can give them the best bang for their buck with that investment. Again, because like those authors in particular, their publishing houses are not paying for our services. These people are investing in this independently versus like a business with a line item for PR. Right. It's a very different thing. So we want to be mindful of that, and we like to work with big corporate clients and individuals. They all provide like a great amount of fun, and they're interesting, and it's nice to have diversity in your daily life and what you do. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I find the same thing in our work. Everyone says you got to niche down and you've got to focus on one thing, but it's so much fun to be able to work with different types of clients, create different types of videos for different companies, and yeah, it's, everyone will give you all sorts of advice, but we're the ones running the businesses. So, you have to do what makes sense. And like I said, we're still delivering the same content, if you will, right? Like we're still navigating the same media landscape, even if the input is different. That's why I say we're like industry agnostic, but the deliverables are always around media and how to earn that attention,
Yeah.
right? So it's really not that different. Maybe from an outsider, if you look at our client roster, you say, oh, these clients are all over the place. But when you really look at what we provide and the results that we give to all of them, they're very similar in that they're earning TV placements, they're getting booked on podcasts, they're getting digital features, maybe they're getting a newspaper feature, whatever it might be for that client. It's all very similar.
Yeah. Do you have any recent client stories that you want to share, or any wins or successes, or?
Well, our favorite. Well, I shouldn't. We love all of our clients, of course. But we do some very special work that we call Cleary Cares. It's our pro bono public relations that we do today. And so we feel that there are often organizations and people who deserve and need and benefit from media attention that might not have the resources to invest in it.
Yeah.
So we are often looking for a client to take on for a 30-day window or 60-day window that we can help them with a campaign or something that they want to promote when they're not in a position to invest in public relations. It's not nonprofits, because we work with nonprofits who retain our services.
Sure.
But for example, we helped a woman based in California with metastatic breast cancer who developed a platform called We Got This. It's a nonprofit cancer gift registry, the first ever of its kind.
Okay.
And we got her placement on Good Morning America. And the interaction with her website went up I don't want to say the exact percentage, but it was a crazy increase and influx in engagement. And so things like that make us feel just really great about the work that we do, because I don't want the woman that started, the mom with a young daughter with metastatic breast cancer, which is incurable, to give me a retainer. I want her to work on what she's doing, right? And we helped a little boy with Usher 1F syndrome. He started a cereal challenge. This was a few years ago. And the syndrome eventually takes away your sight and your hearing. He's a little boy, and he started the cereal challenge, and he said, I want to raise money, and I want people to try to eat pour themselves a bowl of cereal blindfolded to know what my life will be like. And he was based in the New York City media market. We got him on every station in New York. We had the anchors doing the cereal challenge, and they raised $100,000 in a very short period of time because of that campaign.
Yeah,
so,
wow.
Of course, we love our clients that retain our services, and it's amazing, and they do amazing work too. But I love the stories from our Cleary Cares clients, because we just get a chance to invest some time and resources to help people that put that money towards your Usher 1 syndrome research, and let us help you, and let us use the knowledge that we have and the expertise that we have to change your life in a small way.
Absolutely.
Those are some of my favorite
You have
stories.
the tools, you have the ability to do it, to help someone like that, and that's amazing. Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah. Now you do, in addition to the PR, you also do crisis control, right? Is that the right term? Or
yeah, crisis communications. And again, very much through the lens of how the media will cover. So there is, remember in the beginning of our conversation, we talked about how communications is very broad.
Yeah.
If you have a crisis and you're a major corporation, you have to do internal communications to manage that and mitigate that crisis. Stakeholder management. I mean, there's so many layers. The layer that we can come in and help you with, either prepare for or respond to. Ideally, we work with you to prepare for it, and you're not just calling us when the house is burning down. Is how the media is going to cover your crisis. People don't know basic things like what it means. What does it mean to talk to a reporter off the record? What does it mean to talk to a reporter on background? How do you handle when reporters are calling you? Dozens of reporters are calling you to get a statement or a comment. And so we have the experience. I mean, I'm a former White House correspondent. I know how reporters think when they want to cover a bad headline, right? I know what they're looking for. They're going for the jugular. Let me tell you, they're not there to be your friend. And so you really need, not you personally, but if you are in, I mean, really any business could anticipate a crisis, but there are some certainly more prone to it. And if that is something that you think could happen, having a crisis plan in place is very smart. Having a relationship with an agency that understands the crisis through the media's eyes is very important, so that then if and when it happens, We've got everything in place. You call us up. We know who the key spokespeople are. They are trained. We have some talking points in mind. Of course, the crisis will never be exactly what you prepare for, but that doesn't mean that the preparation is fruitless.
Yeah.
Right? It's still extremely valuable. So again, not to repeat myself so many times, everything that we do is always through this lens of the media covering you, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Mm-hmm. And how can you increase the good, reduce the bad through this third party that you really have no control over, right? And so it's not an advertisement. It's not your personal social media feeds. But at the end of the day, like, media is not going anywhere. Right? Like, you say, oh, people don't watch TV. I mean, people still watch TV. They just watch it on a Roku, right? They watch it on their laptop. Like, they're still the news is not going away just because people don't get a newspaper delivered in the morning. So it's our job to understand how it's changing. It's our job to help you navigate that, because invariably, if you want a business that's going to grow and become successful, you're going to interact with it. So how do you do it the best way possible on behalf of your business?
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
So what about, just in general, like trends that you're seeing? What are your clients asking you about right now? Podcasts, okay.
Yep, they all want to be on podcasts. And so it's so funny because I come from TV. A lot of the people that are on my team come from TV. I still think TV is like the sexiest medium you could be on, because this experience here with your podcast is unusual, right? To get this amazing experience, to sit down and be on camera and talk. There is nothing like the visual element of a media appearance. So, we still very much, in some ways, like, convince our clients to do TV and say, like, look, you're going to use this video in newsletters and social. Like, you're going to establish yourself as an expert for good. Now, most people, it doesn't take much convincing, and they get it. But podcasts are what people want because they're long form. Mm-hmm. And even though a podcast audience is usually smaller, not like a Joe Rogan or Call Her Daddy. Those are obviously huge audiences, but the audiences are smaller, but they are deliberate. They are purposeful. They're listening because they want to listen. And so that exchange and experience of being on a 30-minute podcast with totally loyal, devoted listeners can be more beneficial to your bottom line than maybe a TV appearance. But the TV appearance still has value, because even though you've got millions of viewers who are maybe in passing and maybe they're watching because they want the weather and they happen to see you, that's a very different interaction than a podcast where I chose to listen to you. But all of them still matter and come together to create like a personality, for you will, a presence, a thought leadership experience, like for who you are as a leader. So they all matter, but podcasts are what people want. Everybody wants to be on a podcast. A lot of them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And it's a great way to just, deep dive. I mean, you are basically, I listen to a lot of podcasts, right? I'm in my car, and most of it's audio. Ironically, we do video podcasts, I know. But I find myself listening in the car to podcasts, and it's great because you're kind of a fly on the wall between two or more people having a conversation about really a very specific topic that you're interested in. And it's just like such a great way to engage an audience, right? It's at scale.
It's fantastic. And a lot of times with podcasts, I mean, sure that you might have loyalty to a show or a host, but you're listening to the podcast because you're like, oh, I want to hear that guest, or I want to listen to this person. And so you are committed to that episode to really learn about what they have to say. And that's what makes it really unique and special. And then there's all sorts of topics on podcasts too. So you just have like more freedom.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We can't have this, nobody wants to talk on TV about it. Public relations. We're behind the scenes there, but podcasts are places where I could talk about my work. So even for me, it's awesome.
Yeah. Do you have a process when someone says, hey, I want to be on a podcast? Like, okay, like, do you reach out to podcast hosts directly?
Everything in
do you
our
work
agency.
With an agency?
Everything in our agency is like very streamlined and structured. So great. My background before I got into TV, I have a degree in systems engineering. So even though I don't practice as an engineer, my brain very much works in the idea of how can I make this a system? How can I make this a process and make it efficient so that we can deliver great results to our clients? When I first got into public relations, I would just kind of think of who were my friends in this business. Mm-hmm. And I would say, hey, Bill, I have a friend, Bill, at Fox 29, and I would say, can you do this story? Could you do me this favor? And that felt awful. Right? Yeah. A lot of publicists really say, I have great relationships and that's how I do my job. I mean, relationships only help you if you are pitching the reporter a pitch that they need and want. Otherwise, you're just annoying your friends, right? So I kind of turned it all on its head, and everything is systematized that we do. There are processes for everything. So if you tell me that you want to be on podcasts, we're going to think about the types of podcasts that you dream of. You're going to maybe give me your top 10 podcasts. Look, you're probably not going to end up on Oprah Daily, but we're going to try. But then we're going to think, okay, what other podcasts talk to authors? Or what other podcasts talk to authors about the topic that you can bring to the table? We're going to build massive lists using databases that we pay for access to, so that we can make sure we're pitching podcasts that give us access to the producers or the hosts. And then we're going to make sure that we're pitching fitting podcasts. I'm not sitting through and scrolling Apple Podcasts and like guessing and picking like, oh, who hosts this? Let me go find their email address on LinkedIn. That is not how we do what we do. Because if it was, we would not be able to deliver results because it's so inefficient, right? So everything is very thoughtful, systematized, and streamlined. We don't use another agency, but we do use tools and databases that we pay for access to, so that we can see who's in there and then present great fitting pitches to great fitting hosts and producers, whether we know them or not. And if that is met in the middle, it doesn't matter if you're friends with them, because you're giving them what they need and what they're looking for. So relationships are great, but relationships are not a long-term PR strategy. You will never be able to support a client for years resting only on your relationships. You need creativity, you need strategy, you need thoughtfulness. All of those things are what keep a client around for month after month, year after year, with great, meaningful results.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's like a value exchange there where like you need to be able to put your client in a position to be successful, right? And show that, hey, even if you don't have a relationship with this news anchor or this podcast host or something, like there's got to be a win-win there that you can position well, and I think that's where a lot of your value can come from. Right?
Yeah, when we got our Cleary Cares client on Good Morning America, I didn't know the person who accepted the pitch.
Yeah.
But we knew it was a good story for Good Morning America, and it was the right time to send it. They wrote back and said, "We love it. Yeah. We're going to connect you to this producer that's going to do this segment for you." I mean, it was almost instantaneous. Now that doesn't always happen, right? But that's how you make magic, and that's how you deliver results almost beyond your wildest dreams, because there's no way you could know everybody everywhere. Of course, like, friends help. I don't want to diminish that, but I just think the big sales pitch of some agencies is, I have contacts. And I'm here to tell you that that's smoke and mirrors, because that's just not how you get the long-term results that are meaningful and quality, and also not bug all your friends.
Yeah, right.
Which, who wants to be that person?
Yeah.
So
trying to cash in on IOUs and stuff.
And now you say, "Hey, Bill, I have a great client for your show on Fox 29 that would be an awesome fit for you." And Bill says, "This is great. I love it." And that's where the relationships build over time and become stronger, because they know you're going to call them when it's a great fit.
Yeah, yeah. Any real tactical advice that you'd share for someone who's thinking about, exploring a PR campaign or?
So a couple things.
Or things that maybe they should prepare before reaching out to a company like yours, or?
I would say definitely be ready to make an investment for 6 months. Do not hire an agency that makes guarantees. There's something going wrong. There's something not on the up and up.
Yeah.
They're either going to pay for placements and not tell you, or maybe they're calling their friends that they know they can guarantee you some short-term wins. I think that's a red flag. Think about the vibe of the agency, right? Do you get along with the people, right? I mean, I don't talk to my clients every day, but we have good relationships, right? We get along, we see eye to eye. They understand the philosophy that we bring to the table. They've seen our results. They kind of know what they're getting before they hire us. And then the other thing, once you hire the agency, or maybe this is really before you hire the agency, make sure you have time, because there's only so much I can do. I can't write your talking points for a podcast, right? I can't, if I have a client who's a plastic surgeon, I don't know what the trends are in plastic surgery, right? So my client has to have the time. If I say, what are some trends, to even just write up 5 or 6 sentences and tell me what the trends are. Then when we land that pitch, my client has to have the time to sit down and do the podcast or the TV appearance. Then my client has to either have the time or the team to promote the podcast on social platforms, right? And push it out there on their newsletters or to their network. So when you hire certain people, like if you, even a bookkeeper, you just got to help them organize like what your costs mean, right? There's always sort of a investment of your time, even though you're hiring the third party to help you do the job.
Yeah.
I think the lift of the client with a publicist might be a little more than you realize. So you want to make sure you're like, okay, this next 6 months, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to work on some ideas. I'm going to have the resources in place to share the wins and put them out on social media. You can ask your publicist for like guidance or maybe social media agencies to hire. You don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Just know that you want to be able to put the time into it to make the most out of the investment in public relations, so that when you have wins, you can celebrate them and make hay with them.
Yeah.
You know, I always say, like, if a segment airs on the Today Show, no one's watching the Today Show, did the segment even happen? Right? So it's like you've got to be able to repurpose it and promote it and push it out there and do all those things, and that does take time. And generally speaking, that's not what the publicist does.
Right.
So that would be my piece of advice to think about.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, repurposing content is something that we always talk about. I mean, just something like this podcast, right? You're going to have the video, you're going to have the long form video, you'll have the audio, you're going to have some nice clips in here. You can even have the transcript. We can pull a transcript, pull sound, but there's just so much you can do with content these days. So
totally.
But PR too. I mean, I mean, just this is easy to put up a camera and get a video, but then getting your face up there on the news, like that's something that you just got to blast out there.
Yeah, social media managers, sometimes people will hire us and they have a social media manager. They usually love us, and we usually work very closely with them because we are constantly giving them content.
Yeah.
Right? And those, I think clients that do have someone in place, even if it's an intern, I mean, I think there is a tremendous amount of skill to great social media that should not be diminished to just like a inexperienced intern or college student. But if that's all you can afford, that is better than nothing, right? So, but what I'm saying is, if you have someone in place that can help you distribute and manage the content that we help you earn, you're going to be better off, see more success, and be more excited about the investment. And that's what we want. We want you to feel great about it. We want you to stick around.
So just in terms of like founder and CEO of Cleary Strategies, like on your entrepreneurial journey, anything you want to share about starting the business, maybe challenges you've run into for other business owners, maybe some advice that you might have?
Sure. I love that question. It's a loaded question. And sometimes it's funny, I think to myself, I don't want to answer this because I don't want to discourage people from doing it.
Yeah.
Because if I knew everything I knew today, I might have been too intimidated to try. But now that I'm all these years in, I'm like, let's do it, But I'd say it's a lot harder than you realize. And I think that at least in a service industry, I can only speak to that. Mm-hmm. The client pipeline is long. Mm-hmm. And it can take a long time from the first interaction with a potential client to closing the client. And it maybe has nothing to do with your services. Or there's nothing to change on your part. People just take their time to decide, especially when it's a retainer-based business where it's a very big investment.
Yeah.
And so when you start the business, I would always say to people, I know how to do the job that I'm doing. I know how to provide the service I'm providing, but running this business is a totally different thing. And so business development, filling your client pipeline, it has to happen from the start. Because I say, like, everywhere I go, I'm like planting seeds of potential clients, and some of them don't bloom for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? And so in the beginning, I think your business can be supported by your immediate network and the people who know you. But what happens is you exhaust that.
Yeah.
And then people have to start hiring you who don't know you, or might be second or third degree connections, or people who find you on a Google search. And building the infrastructure to kind of get to those people takes time. And I didn't fully appreciate how long that timeline can be. Now we're in a great place where, like I think I shared with you before we started, I have somebody that is going to start with us in February, and I think I interacted with her for the first time 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And she came to me, she said, I finally secured the budget for public relations that we need. I want to start February 1st, do a 6-month contract. I mean, that took her a long time to facilitate in her business, right? So it's just, I don't know exactly how you do what I'm saying you need to do, because sometimes it's sort of just, you're just working, putting yourself out there, meeting people, but investing in CEO, networking, it's many layers, but thinking about that pipeline and not just the work you do for your clients is very important.
Yeah, it is. It's a different, process of being in the business, doing the job, and then like running the business and being a CEO.
Working on the business versus in the business, they say.
That's it. Yeah.
But everyone says that, but you don't really appreciate what that means until you're like 2 years in and you say, oh, where am I going to get my next client from? And clients take 6 months to close sometimes, or 8 months to close. Like, what am I going to do? So those are the moments that are really can be terrifying when you run a business. And what happens for some people, unfortunately, is maybe they're not in a position where they have the savings or they're the breadwinner, and then they have to close their business and sort of give up on their dream, where if they could wait that 6 months till it kind of resolves itself, they could be in business and continue. And so that's why it is so important. And I've listened to some conversations where that's the reason why the business has to close almost prematurely. So that is very important to think about as an entrepreneur and CEO, at least in this type of business that I run, that I can speak to.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice.
Thank you. Oh, and contracts. Have contracts.
Have contracts, yeah.
Yes. Have contracts with your clients and protect yourself, and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, and ask people. People sign contracts all the time. Think about what you're willing to do for the people who you hire, and don't be afraid to ask for the same in return from the people who hire you. I think sometimes people feel different when it's on their behalf, and you're like, wait a minute, I sign contracts. I agree to commitments, so those things like that can help you avoid catastrophes down the line.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Thank you.
What's next for Cleary Strategies? I mean, do you have anything in the works?
Cleary Strategies worldwide, I mean, we just want to continue to grow, serve more clients, and just, for me internally, to continue, like I said earlier in the podcast, systematize, optimize procedures in place. I don't want this business to live in my head. Right now it really doesn't, but I want to get more and more away from that. So there are more people who help make this run as a process and a system, not just I'll call this friend, I'll email this person I know, and really have something in place that can live independent of me as much as possible.
Sure.
Because I'm still very much an integral part of the business, which is fine and great and exciting. So internally, I have a meeting this afternoon with the woman that works with me to think about onboarding processes. How do we formalize and structure the onboarding process with clients? So that's what we're doing internally. And then just like as a business, we want to just continue to grow, serve more clients, just keep being great, and then continue to navigate the changing landscape of the media, right? Because we invested in our podcast database to help our clients get on podcasts maybe 2 or 3 years ago. That was not necessary. When we first started, and if we got someone on a podcast, it was, oh, how cool, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Now it's a major part of our strategy. So be nimble, pay attention, what's out there. I go to industry conferences to learn about how is AI going to change my industry? How is AI going to change pitching? How is AI changing just the whole landscape and the space? How is it changing reporters' jobs, right? Are they still writing for these papers? So that is something I think about a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, this has been a great conversation. Anything we haven't covered or anything you want to share?
We covered everything.
I think
this was awesome, and I'm so glad to have had this opportunity to talk about my business and my career and Cleary Strategies. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I mentioned before, I think PR is such a nuanced skill, and you have such an amazing business that you've built, and the service that you provide your clients is amazing. So there's a lot of good synergy between PR, social media, advertising, all of it working together. And I personally don't have a lot of knowledge about PR, so this is really really helpful. And
well, if you have any questions, I'm always here. And if anybody wants to find us, we're clearystrategies.com. I was going to joke, and I was going to say my one piece of advice is don't name your business Cleary, because the name auto-corrects to Clearly, everywhere. So make sure when you look for us, it's Cleary, Cleary Strategies. We're on all social platforms. I'm Ronica Cleary. like Monica, but Ronica, and Ronica Cleary on all platforms too. And you can find us and learn about what we do, and we can send you examples and tell you all about our business. We'd love to talk to anybody listening.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Ronica. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. This was an original production by Shoemaker Films, LLC. If you enjoyed today's content, please consider subscribing on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your content. Follow us on Instagram at shoemaker.films. If you're a business either interested in our services or you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please get in touch by using the contact form on our website, shoemakerfilms.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.